A Christmas Carol was written by Charles Dickens in 1843. The story begins with Ebenezer Scrooge being visited by his nephew Fred at work. Fred is attempting to convince his uncle to come to the Christmas party he is hosting, while Scrooge refuses, and also refuses to give the day off to his employee Bob Cratchit. That night at home, Scrooge is visited by the ghost of Jacob Marley, his former business partner who died 7 years prior. Marley explains that because of the way he behaved when he was alive, he is cursed to be a ghost weighed down by chains. Marley was just as greedy and selfish as Scrooge, and does not want Scrooge to suffer the same fate. He warns Scrooge that he will be visited by 3 ghosts over the next 3 nights. Marley leaves and Scrooge instantly falls asleep. Scrooge wakes up at midnight, despite falling asleep past that, and is confused until he remembers Marley's warning that the first ghost will arrive at 1. The ghost of Christmas past arrives and brings Scrooge back to his childhood. They go through many of Scrooge's memories, including one memory of Scrooge's sister Fan, who Scrooge says died many years ago and is the mother of Fred, and another memory of Mr. Fezziwig's party. Another memory is of Scrooge and a woman named Belle, as she breaks off their engagement due to his greed. The ghost shows Belle and her husband discussing her ex-fiancé and the fact that he's completely alone. All of the memories become too much for Scrooge to bear, and he is transported back home and immediately falls asleep. The second ghost waits for Scrooge and tells him that he is the ghost of Christmas present. This ghost shows him the Cratchit household on Christmas as they prepare the few foods they can afford. Tiny Tim, Bob's crippled son, is introduced, and Scrooge desperately wants to know what will happen to him. The ghost reveals that with the current conditions of the Cratchit house, Tiny Tim will not survive to next Christmas. The ghost also shows him Fred's Christmas party, where he has a very good time despite the fact that none of the guests can see him. During this time, the ghost has begun to age. At the end of their time together, the ghost shows Scrooge the 2 children who live under his robes, Ignorance and Want. The clock strikes midnight and the hooded figure of the third ghost arrives. This is the ghost of Christmas yet to come. The ghost shows him various people talking about the death of a very rich man, before taking him to the Cratchit household, where the family grieves the loss of Tiny Tim. The ghost finally takes Scrooge to a graveyard and shows him a gravestone that has the name Ebenezer Scrooge on it. Scrooge is horrified and promises the ghost that he will live by the morals the 3 ghosts have taught him. Scrooge is once again brought back to his own bed. He wakes up on Christmas morning completely overjoyed to be given a second chance, and has a Christmas turkey delivered to the Cratchits before he attends Fred's Christmas party. The next day at work, he informs Bob of his plan to give him a large raise. He becomes a second father to Tiny Tim, who does not die like the ghost predicted. Scrooge was never again visited by the ghost and kept his word to live a better life. A Christmas Carol takes place in London during the Industrial Revolution. The influence of the Industrial Revolution was important to both the novel and Dickens' own life. When Dickens was still very young, his father was sent to prison for being unable to pay his debt. At this time, Dickens was sent to work in a factory putting labels on pots of blacking, a substance that was used to clean fireplaces. Dickens was eventually able to return to school, but his experience working in horrifying conditions stayed with him for the rest of his life and was seen many times in his writing. The influence of the Industrial Revolution and Dickens' own life experiences are expressed through the characters in A Christmas Carol. Scrooge reflects the unkindness and selfishness of the rich during the Industrial Revolution, while Bob Cratchit and his family represent those who suffer because of the Industrial Revolution. A Christmas Carol is universally considered a classic. A classic is defined as something that is of the first or highest quality, class, or rank, or serves as a standard or model. A Christmas Carol is considered a classic because Charles Dickens was the first author to write a novel in the Christmas genre. A Christmas Carol was an instant success when it was published and is still widely read today. A classic novel also includes relatable themes such as family, poverty, and greed. Because of its status as a classic, A Christmas Carol has been the subject of many Hollywood interpretations. The 1951 film Scrooge is often referred to as the most accurate portrayal of A Christmas Carol, but has many differences from the novel. The film adds when Scrooge proposes to Belle, except in the film her name has been changed to Alice. In the novel it is only stated that Fan has died, but in the film there is an entire scene dedicated to this.
Ebenezer, I sent for you. Promise me.
Promise you what, Fan? I'll promise you anything, dearest. Only that there isn't going to be any need. You're going to get well again, Fan.
No.
Another film based off the novel is Scrooged. Scrooged is very loosely based off A Christmas Carol and changed major parts of the story, like the main character being named Frank Cross and that he's a TV executive in order for the movie to be more modern. It kept the main idea of a selfish man being visited by 3 ghosts at Christmas, but altered practically everything else. The Muppet Christmas Carol keeps more of the plot than Scrooge does, but also has major changes to the story. Because the Muppets already have their own characters, they had Gonzo narrating the story as Charles Dickens and changed the character of Jacob Marley into 2 characters. The Muppet Christmas Carol also changed the plot by adding musical numbers that reflect the plot.
When a cold wind blows, it chills you to the bone.
But there's nothing in nature that
freezes your heart like years of being alone.
It paints you with indifference like a lady paints with rouge.
And the worst of the worst
The most hated and cursed
is the one that we call Scrooge.
Unkind as any,
And the wrath of many.
this is Ebenezer Scrooge.
Oh, there goes Mr. Humbug. There goes Mr. Grim.